Okay, welcome everybody to this chat we've set up here. I'm currently in Australia, in Brisbane, and everybody is obviously wanting to know what am I doing here and what's happening, and when can they sign up for the loan operator course and so on and so forth. Now, before we get to the when and where you can sign up, there's some footwork that needs to be done in this country. Obviously, there's different rules, there's different laws, and so on and so forth. So we can't just pop up on a plane and start teaching and training people. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be put in place, and that is the process that we are currently busy with. Now, I'm sitting here today with the MD of Fortis Australia, Simon Rea, and Simon is a criminal behaviour specialist, a behavioural specialist, but also a published author, martial artist with many years knowledge in the martial arts, and obviously in the training industry himself, and so on and so forth. Simon and myself have been business partners since 2018, and we just want to do a little chat about behavior and the psychology behind self-defense and the psychology behind crime and criminals in general. So this will be a little bit of a general chat to give you an overview of where we are heading with this part of the program in such. All right, so Simon, thank you for your time.
No, thank you, and it's good to have you here, back on land.
Back where we've got electricity. I mean, this is for the guys back in South Africa. This is electricity. If you've wondered, this is what it looks like.
Switches on and off.
You can actually see stuff. So, Simon, we've been Kryman. Kryman is Simon's criminal name. Kryman Enduro. Right. So, Simon, we've been chatting about going to the dark place. How do you know you are properly set up to defend yourself? What do you do in the case of an attacker, and so on and so forth? Let's elaborate a bit on the stuff that we've discussed earlier today.
Well, look, as we were chatting, and the stuff that we're doing with Fortis as far as the training and stuff is top class stuff. But if you don't have your mind right and you haven't given yourself permission, or you don't know how to deal with switching gears from, okay, I'm going to submit, or is this now going further? For instance, let's take a street altercation and the guy points a gun. Give him your wallet. Don't fight with that. The money's not worth it. But if you give him the wallet and then he's still standing there with a gun, you need to switch gears, because now this has become a different story. And often for most people, they may have had the training. The guys that I train, as I was saying to you, 156 different self-defense techniques I can teach them within a 1 square meter thing of different angles of attack and everything else. But if they haven't given themselves permission to be in that situation, if they don't know how to deal with that, or they're, because we're all brought up in these great challenges, especially here in Australia, it's like, oh, don't be nasty to people, don't hit people, and we learn that from childhood. If that kicks in, those 156 self-defense techniques are never going to actually eventuate.
Let's elaborate on that permission, because to me that's a very interesting concept that I haven't thought about, So, and obviously I think a lot of people don't think about this, that I actually have to give myself permission to do that.
Well, it's having worth in yourself. So often, like I've found especially with women's groups, is you'll be training women and I'll say to them, okay, so who's a black belt here? And there's like none of them are. They've come to learn self-defense. And I go, okay. So, well, what would you do under you're being attacked? Oh, I don't know, I would fall down, I'd panic, I would whatever. I go, okay, well, let's change the picture. You come home, you open up your back door, you walk into your kitchen, and there's your 14-year-old daughter on the kitchen counter, half stripped naked, and there's a guy attacking her and raping her. And then I hear from the audience, I'd take a frying pan and I'd beat his head in and everything else. And I go, where did you suddenly get your black belt from? Now suddenly, they've given themselves permission to protect. And it's because their daughter is so valuable. And what we've got to learn is that we're valuable because, and they say, oh yeah, but I'm not. I say, well, what if you were killed? How would your daughter feel? What's she going to do moving forward without you? You're valuable. So you have to give yourself permission to protect yourself. And if you haven't done it beforehand, I don't like your chances in the middle of it, because you're in, like we were talking about, the bubble of apathy and denial.
Yeah, yeah.
So a problem occurs, you've walked into the bad situation or been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you need to get to a result. And if you don't cross that bridge as quickly as possible, then there's a world of hurt and a world of trouble. And we know from martial arts, it doesn't matter how fit you are, when you're in the fight, you suddenly start to run out of gas very quickly. So you need to deal with the situation as quickly as possible. So we need to go from problem to result. And the world in between, that bridge, is apathy and denial. And if you're in apathy and denial, then you're second guessing yourself. Because you didn't give yourself permission to deal with that situation in the first place, and you're now thinking, do I? What's the legal quantity? You know, there's all of those things that are starting to fall into place. You're in a world of hurt.
But second guessing then also means I'm doubting my own ability.
Yes.
So if I'm not fit enough, I'm doubting if I've got the wind to last. You know, if I haven't practiced the punch enough, or practiced the block enough, or practiced the shot enough, then I'm doubting, will I be able to do it? Am I correct?
Yeah, 100%. And that's where the practice comes in too. So getting on one of the courses with Fortis is not the solution. It's getting on many and staying with it, and staying connected to the environment, because the environment dictates.
Yes.
So the environment we're involved in, if we hang around with a whole lot of people who are idiots, there's a good chance you're going to be an idiot. You're not going to be somebody brilliant. So you've got to surround yourself with people like-minded, thinking the same. And as we've known from the martial arts, the reason we practice a technique over and over 1,000 times is because then it just becomes muscle memory. Because you do not have time to think during that. Now, in the stuff that I teach and train in, of course, one is body language, reading non-verbals, seeing when there's an escalation in violence occurring. There's tells that our body leaks. But I teach a thing called scan, which is when you're in a situation, you've suddenly you're upset about something, you come in here screaming and shouting. Now I could respond to that or react to it, and the reaction then escalates the problem and everything, or I can run scan. So scan is suspend all judgment. So instead of me judging you for walking in here, I'm suddenly like, okay, suspend my judgment, because at that time I'm thinking you're an idiot or an arsehole, and you know, what the hell is this? Okay, suspend that. Why is that coming across? What is the context? So C in scan is context. So what is the context? Well, I find out you've just had a car accident, your wife's just left you. Okay, I get it. I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to see where you're coming from. In scan, A is the next one. So what that is, and what else? What else could be? Oh, it's 40 degrees outside. People a little bit more edgier. Different things are coming into play. And then I start to understand. And then the last thing, of course, is the N, and that's new judgment.
Okay.
Now you can run that in situations where it's business, there's not going to go straight into a physical conflict. But if you suddenly go to strike me, I'm not going to run scan. I don't have time for that.
No.
I've got to allow my instincts, my training to fall into place. So if I haven't trained, there is going to be none of that. And the instincts are going to be reflex, I'm going to duck, I'm going to cower, whatever comes naturally, whatever I've been trained to do. Otherwise I'm going to end up in this bubble of panic and denial, and I'm going to cop shot from you because I'm like, he's not hitting me. Why is he hitting me?
Can't believe it.
I can't believe this is happening to me. this doesn't happen to me, this happens to other people, and I'm in that conversation in my head, now I'm in trouble.
Okay. Just latching onto that, we talked about that dark place, going to that dark place. And it's one of the concepts that we obviously talk about on Lone Operator a lot, but what does it mean? How do people understand the dark place? I mean, if you've been there and you've gone there more than once, obviously you understand it. But for somebody who doesn't live there, is not used to it, in the Australian context as well as in the South African context, because now we see in Australia that crime is escalating, youth crime is escalating. So you wake up at 2 o'clock, there's this 16-year-old standing in your house, stealing your car keys, you confront them, and now he wants to fight you. Now I have to go somewhere.
Yeah, and it's often, again, getting out of apathy and denial, having permission that you're going to protect your household and protect your family, and understanding what that means.
Yeah.
As in the old saying of, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Yes.
But do you want to go down that path? Because a lot of people go, no, I could never hurt somebody. Okay, maybe you have to.
I'll be honest.
And if you've already got that in your head, because knowing that our brain is one of these things, it's a supercomputer, that if we type into a computer, I need you to fail, for this computer to succeed at your instruction, it must fail. In other words, it fails to succeed.
Okay.
So if you've already said, I can't hurt somebody, you're right. Because your computer in your head is going to say, can't do it. I just, it's against my beliefs, it's against my religious beliefs, or whatever it is. That's fine, but then you can't cry when the result is not what you were wanting, which is survival, which is to be with your family, to live many years. So you have to go to that dark space. So, as we were talking, there's a psychiatrist down in Sydney, and he's written a whole lot of material on what he calls ego states. And what he says is that we have 5 to 6 ego states, which is the personality, the non-verbals, the chemistry that we present to the world at certain times. So us as in an MD or CEO position having a conversation about this, we bring a certain ego state, which comes with all its nuances, to this conversation. Now when I'm talking to my wife, I have a different ego state that steps in. So as he says, we have like 5 or 6 that we go throughout the day. When I'm talking to my little puppy, I'm talking in this nice little voice, but if I was talking to you like that, you'd be going, okay, got to rethink my whole business strategy. This guy's nuts, right? So we have these different ego states. But as he explains, down in the attic or down in the basement of ourselves, we have about another 150 ego states. Now where you get personality disorder, multiple personality disorder, or schizophrenia or stuff, this is when those ego states are coming to the forefront, and we know from the literature on it, those ego states come forward, they speak in a different accent, they may even speak a different language. They've even tested people who, in one ego state, when they're schizophrenic, they were a certain persona, and they had diabetes. And they test them for diabetes in that state, and they have diabetes. All the little indicators show that they've got diabetes. And their ego state changes, so they change personalities. There's multiple personality disorder, and they're now talking to somebody else. And they take bloods from them, and there's no diabetes because that ego state had no diabetes. So this is how powerful ego states are, and how powerful our mindset and everything is, and it's so important. So we know from business, if your mindset isn't there in business, well, it doesn't matter how good you are at business, you're going to fail because you're not in that state. Well, self-defense, self-preservation is a heightened state of business. because it's going to happen in a moment. It's not over a period of 5 years or 10-year plan. This is a moment time. FBI statistics on conflict is 30 to 60 seconds and it's over. That period happens. Yes, we know there's hostage situations where people are held for hours, but the main part of that violence is 30 to 60 seconds and it happens in an instant. So we've got to be able to switch, and this is why I say we've got to give ourselves permission beforehand, before it ever happens.
As you're talking now, I'm thinking, so the criminal that grows up in a specific environment then basically becomes that persona or that ego state where he is now this badass
And he believes
crime boss, and he believes it. And that's the person that now enters my home.
Yes.
So I'm seeing this thin, scrawny guy, but in his mind, in his personality, in his belief system, he's this
He's
big
an animal.
gang lord animal.
Yeah, and he's dangerous, he's nasty. He's already got that thought process, so he's already one-headed, part of the head of you. In the chess game of that instance, he's already playing way ahead of your game, because now you're deciding that I'm going to go from being this nice family guy who goes to work every day and earns a living and pays his taxes and sings kumbaya at the end of the week or whatever. I've got to now go from that guy, that I'm already dealing with a guy who lives in the world of violence, who is violent, who thinks and perceives he's violent, perceives he's this dangerous criminal, and you've got to go from that to match him or to better him. So you have to switch like this. So if we take, like for instance, we know that we can be happy right now, and then somebody walks through the door and says, your child was just killed in a car accident, and instantly you are sad. You are depressed, your body language changes, your shoulders drop, your head drops, tears form, your chemicals in your brain change. You go into, you've got cortisol and adrenaline pumping through your system, whereas before you had serotonin and oxytocin and stuff, all the good happy drugs running through your system, and you instantly change. Now if you can do that because somebody said something, or what if you can do that by saying it to yourself?
I see, yeah.
So you say something to yourself, you have an anchor point, a situation is happening, I have an anchor point here, I just tap. And then I'm literally, this is my trigger. So I can go from sad to happy instantly, because I've anchored. This is part of neurolinguistics. So we can anchor, and what we want to do with moving forward is actually create programs which will teach you how to become the dark space very quickly. You don't want to live there because it's a horrible spot to be in.
Yes, yes.
But you have to go there with the permission and with the persona, with that ego state that becomes the badass that just walked through your door. That you've got to become the person who's going to scare the hell out of the skinny badass who's just walked through the door, he's about to steal your house.
Without living there constantly.
Without living there, because you don't want to be there. You don't want to be that guy. Because again, the environment dictates, and if you're in that thought process, then your environment will become that. And I can guarantee your marriage will end, your relationship with your kids will end, your job will fall apart, because the badass doesn't run those very well.
Yep.
Show me a criminal element that has great relationships.
Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
You will like me.
Yeah.
You will like me. Okay, well, Simon, just like that, I think, that's a mouthful. Guys, as you can see, once the guy gets going, he can carry on for hours and hours and hours, but...
I do apologize.
No, it's valuable stuff. So, just to put it into perspective, this is the first element that we're bringing into the Loan Operator program, where we're gonna look at the psychology behind not only the attacker, but also the defender. And in a violent country such as South Africa, as well as let's call it a non-violent country such as Australia, and then everything in between. So there is a process behind it, but there is method to our madness. We are busy building a business. We are not just here to present some courses and earn some dollars and walk away from it. we've got a vision on this thing, and that's why it is a process that we need to follow. So just stick with us, bear with us, follow our social medias. Also sign up for our newsletter if you have to. But on our Facebook page is basically where all the action and events and announcements happen. So make sure that you're on there. The link will be in the description below. Simon, thank you for your time.
No, thank you. It's
Simon,
great.
we've got a couple of sessions to sit down in the next 2 weeks still. Discuss the way forward, make a way, see where we're going to go with it.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. We're going to bring things like the narcissist mindset, the sociopath, the psychopath.
Yeah.
How we recognise those, and then of course going into how do we recognise non-verbals, which are going to show that there is potentially a violent crime or violence is going to occur from that, and just then removing yourself from that situation, because that's the first part of it, is getting the hell out of the way.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Awesome. Look forward to it.